Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavad-gita, as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Swami Prabhupada, chapter 5, text 22. Yehi samsparshada bhoga dukha yoneya evate adyantavanta kauntaya nateshu ramate buddhaha.
Bhagavad-gita, chapter 22, 22nd text, translation, of course, basically is Bhakti Swami Prabhupada. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. The purport. Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? The Bhakta Purana, it is said, Ramante yogino ante Satyananda Chintamani iti Rama Padanasa Param Brahma Vidyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. The Srimad Bhagavatam also, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 1st text, is said, Nayam Deho Deha Bhajam Nirloke Kashtam Kaman Adhate Vid Bhujam Ye Taho Divyam Putrakaha Yena Sattvam Shuddhe Yasma Brahma Saukyam Va Anantam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in the human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, the horse. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis or learned transcendentalists are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasure, the more he is entrapped by material miseries.
I chose to speak on this verse because in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has included a verse in which the word Ramante appears. Ramante means they enjoy, they take pleasure in. We are in Ramana Hall. Raman means pleasure. So it can be understood. Raman, of course, this is a common name throughout India. Means one who is pleasure or who is the source of pleasure, gives pleasures to others, who is imbued with pleasure, who is happy. Now, the principle on which Ramana Maharshi is, you see his picture is here. He's usually depicted smiling, but whether or not a sadhu smiles, he always feels happy. That's his basic emotion. Once a devotee disciple of Srila Prabhupada, commented in the presence of Srila Prabhupada about a photograph of Srila Prabhupada, in which sometimes you may have seen photographs of Srila Prabhupada with his lips turned down, which looks like an expression of unhappiness. And the devotee said to Srila Prabhupada that, "Oh, you look unhappy in this picture." Srila Prabhupada said that was a moment of ecstasy. So a sadhu feels happy. Everyone wants happiness. That is the natural principle or dharma of every living being, to desire to be happy. Because Krishna is always happy. He is Satchidananda Maya. He is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. So the jiva, who is the part and parcel of Krishna, is also by nature happy. But in this material world, there is no happiness. The happiness of this material world is samsparshaja bhoga. It's enjoyment based on contact of the senses with the sense enjoyment. But nateshu ramate buddhaha. Those who are an intelligent person does not take pleasure in that. So a sadhu like Ramana Maharshi, he's happy because he's not trying to be happy on the mundane platform. Because he's withdrawn his senses or his aspirations for happiness are not on the mundane platform. He doesn't take pleasure in anything material. Of course, you may be wondering why I'm speaking in praise of someone who's a branded or accredited Mayavadi. But from one perspective, they are sadhus. Though, of course, there are different types of Mayavadis. Most of the modern age Mayavadis, so-called sadhus, are actually bhogis. They're big mundane enjoyers just in the garb of sadhus. I heard that a few days ago, it came in the newspapers in Tamil Nadu, that this so-called self-proclaimed Paramahamsa, who's adopted the name of Nityananda, was taking Ananda in embracing young girls in a school. So he's a complete rascal. I mean, we didn't have to wait for the news to come to know about that. But some Mayavadis or sadhus, they're actually, we can say they're sadhus, inasmuch as they are seriously endeavoring for spiritual life. They're not making a sham or a show of trying to, of being a sadhu with the intention of enjoying their senses. They are detached from the material world, and they may have some level of realization also. So they may be called sadhus, and we can respect them as sadhus. On the other hand, we reject their impersonal conclusion, but we respect them as sadhus. Sometimes devotees became surprised. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada would see, just like for instance, once on his daily morning walk in Delhi, in the park, close to the temple, I think they were in the Lajpat Nagar temple at the time, rented house. So they walked past, one man in the early morning was standing on his head in the park. And one of Srila Prabhupada's sannyasis who was present started to joke about that. I don't know exactly what he was saying. But, what is this nonsense? Something like this. And Prabhupada said, no, that's very good for spiritual life. The same thing happened in America. Walking on the morning walk, and there's a man standing on his head, and some people performing yoga exercises, and devotees were expressing some skepticism about this because Prabhupada had taught them to express skepticism about this. Srila Prabhupada so many times spoke about how the real yoga for the modern age is, or actually for any age, but especially in this age, Bhakti yoga. Yogic techniques may be adopted in other ages, or even in this age. We find that in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, some of the members, traditionally they practice yoga also. So these techniques, they can be useful for controlling the mind and the breath and for keeping healthy. Because Brahmanas, if they're sitting and studying Shastra or performing Archan all day, every day, they may not get much exercise. So that's also a consideration. And also, if practiced properly, can help to control the mind. But Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, on coming to America, found that many people were practicing yoga, but in a very bogus way. Yoga only for improving their health, with no intention of any spiritual dimension. Yoga is very popular in the West, very widely practiced in the Western world now, but in almost all cases devoid of any spiritual touch, or even any pretensions of any spiritual touch, simply for material health and maybe for calming the mind also, but not for any spiritual purpose, just for stress relief. That's all. Just like you find some rascals who pose themselves as gurus, but they're just teaching some techniques of stress relief. That's very common. Sometimes in our ISKCON, our preachers, they also do that. They say stress relief, but then they introduce Krishna consciousness. So it's all right if you do that. You get freed from the stress of repeated birth and death. I mean, that's a lot worse stress than having your boss shouting at you. Having boss shouting you 84 lakh species of life. So anyway, Prabhupada was stressing very much that in Kali Yuga, the direct process of Shravanam Kirtanam, these two processes, they have paramount importance over any other techniques which may be useful or adoptable, but in Kali Yuga, these processes, Shravan, Kirtan, these should be adopted. So once in a park in America, devotees saw someone performing yoga and they were expressing skepticism around that, and Prabhupada again said, no, these things are good for spiritual. So then one devotee asked the inevitable question that, well, shall we do that, Prabhupada? Can we do that? Prabhupada said, not required. Although many devotees do. I do sometimes, not much. When my back gets painful, I do some. Because I used to do it before coming to this movement. So, exercise, yoga exercise. So I know some of these things. So, especially if I'm sitting all day writing day after day, it's for a health technique. Prabhupada generally didn't encourage it, but sometimes he allowed it. He was flexible. When his servant at that time, Nanda Kumar, Srila Prabhupada saw him performing yoga exercises, and Nanda Kumar, is that alright, Prabhupada? Prabhupada said that whatever is required to maintain your health, keep good health. Because unless we have good health, it's difficult to perform service properly. Of course, we shouldn't spend most of our time simply acting bad. But there are basic things, seeing that the body gets sufficient locomotion, sufficient and not too much food, nourishing food. Of course, prasadam is nourishing for the soul, but it's like some devotees are very fond of pizzas. But if you only eat pizzas, then it's not a very nourishing diet. So we should see that it's also required to eat healthy food. In Bhagavad-gita, Lord Krishna states that yukta ahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapna vabodhasya yoga bhakti dukraha. That in the practice of yoga, for overcoming distress, one should have yukta ahara, means sensibly eating. Vihara generally means recreation. Of course, the devotee doesn't have any mundane recreation, but we can take that maybe as exercise. The body should have sufficient locomotion. Not too much. Too much exercise also not healthy. Depends on what kind of body you have. Vata constitution, skinny people like myself, I presently have a skinny body. And much exercise, especially for a thin person, is not recommended. Little. So yukta cheshtasya, one should be balanced is the word, yukta, balanced in one's activities, in one's endeavors, in one's activities, in one's sleep. So balanced. So if required, some exercise, not that we become crazy about exercise. Yes, so Prabhupada said, that's good. Whatever is required to keep it. Of course, on a very advanced platform, one doesn't bother about health. But if you don't bother about health, then you don't bother about the body, then generally the body bothers you more. So, unless one is on the very advanced platform of not being bothered by the botherations of the body, then one should look after it. At the same time, not being too much, like I said, not being so much that one can't be flexible. The main aim is to serve Krishna. So if to serve Krishna we have to do some things which are not the best thing for the body, then we may do so. Just like if one wants to have a very healthy life, then he should leave Chennai and live in the country. Well, you can do that for Krishna also. But if one has to preach, then he has to come to the big cities. Of course, one can also preach in the villages. Like this, for example, one should not travel on trains or planes. Still the Shankaracharyas, at least up to the Chandrasekhar Indran, he wouldn't travel much because he would only go by walking. I think I saw him once in Tirupati, so he must have walked from Kanchi. It's quite a few days walk. And he would come here to Chennai sometimes. That's also, Chennai to Kanchi, we think it's just a short journey, but if you have to walk, then that would take, if you really walk a lot, that would take 2 days. Otherwise, 3 or 4. I think the modern one, the present one, does he follow that? When he was arrested and brought to jail in Vellore, he probably didn't walk. He must have been taken to... Anyway, if we have to travel and preach, then we may do things that just to travel in itself is not very helpful. In general, even if you're walking, because there'll be different food and different atmosphere, different water. But we have to do for preaching. If we think I won't travel, then there'll be less preaching. Once one of Prabhupada's sannyasi disciples, he wrote a letter to Prabhupada saying, I can't stay in any country very long because I'm having visa problems wherever I go. Prabhupada said, that's good. And you can give your mercy to more people, more places. It's good for a sannyasi. So that topic that yogis, Srila Prabhupada generally, he wasn't very enthusiastic even about bona fide yogis, because we are bhakti yogis. But still something good is there, inasmuch as those who are bona fide yogis and not bhogis posing as yogis, they have seen this material world. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yoneya evate. That the attempt for sense gratification is simply a cause of misery. And therefore they do not take pleasure in that. And therefore, someone who's actually detached from this material world has a sense of happiness. So Ramana Maharshi, he, of course I don't know exactly, but it seems that he had some realization of spiritual bliss. The bliss that comes from detachment from this material world and identifying oneself, aham brahmasmi, I am spirit. Of course, he didn't have that bliss which is described in the verse in the purport, in which Prabhupada also, Ramante, they take pleasure. In this verse, in the Gita verse, Krishna talks about those who, an intelligent person does not take pleasure in the material senses. But in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes that those who are real yogis, Ramante yogino nante satyananda chiramani iti rama padena so param brahma vidhiyate. Those who are the best yogis, they have unlimited pleasure in satyananda. What is the genuine pleasure? Who is Rama? You see the same Ramate, Ramante, Rama. So Rama means all pleasure. So the pleasure that the real yogis get in Rama is by understanding iti Rama padena so param brahma vidhiyate. He is param brahma. Aham brahmasmi, that's one level of understanding. I am Brahma. But Param Brahma is Rama, which means Krishna. Rama is another name for Krishna. Of course, there is the Raghuvamshi Rama. When we say Rama, we generally think of Raghuvamshi, Dasharatha Sutta, Rama. Rama can also mean Balaram, Parashuram. But generally when we say Ram, we think of Raghuvamshi, Suryavamshi, Rama, Ramachandra Bhagavan. But Rama is also a name for Krishna, because it means who is all pleasure. So it's also a name for Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Rama here, once in Hyderabad, two of Prabhupada's sannyasis were arguing. When we say Hare Rama, who does that mean? Is it Balaram or Ramachandra of the Raghu Vamsha? They were arguing. Which one does it mean? Prabhupada said either. You can take as either. They're both Rama. Neither is excluded. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained that here Rama, we can also take that as Krishna, who is Radhika Ramana. Not just Ramana. Yeah, it means Krishna. Radhika Ramana. It means Krishna, who is the pleasure of Radhika, or who takes pleasure in Radhika. So Raman, that's a common name. But the real pleasure is Krishna, and he takes pleasure in Radhika. So just imagine how great is Radhika. He is the source of all pleasure, but she gives pleasure to him. He cannot feel pleasure without her. In the Ras Leela, so many gopis may be there. Every gopi is more beautiful than 10,000 Miss Worlds put together. 10,000 Miss Worlds, even any Apsara of the Swarga Loka, they're all more beautiful. But the Apsaras, they're all rejected compared to the gopis. So, unlimited numbers of gopis cannot make Krishna happy unless Radhika is there. So, what is her position? How great is she? So Rama, those who are actual yogis or the best yogis, their pleasure is not simply in detachment from the material senses, but they understand Rama is Param Brahma, and I am also Brahma. That means I have my relationship with the Param Brahma. I am meant for serving him. So, Mayavadis like Ramana Maharshi, they may feel or they certain pleasure that is called Brahmasukha, spiritual, the first platform of spiritual pleasure. But that pleasure, even though it is far greater than any pleasure of this material world, cannot compare with the pleasure of Krishna Bhakti. Maybe this boy could be restrained. So, from one perspective, we can say Ramana Maharshi is a great personality. From another perspective, he's insignificant. Because from the perspective of everyone of this world, he's a great person because he's detached from it. There are not many people who are detached from this world or even interested in being detached from this world. Manushanam sahasrishreshu kaschidhyapati siddhi. Among thousands of men, one may be interested in self-realization. But yatataṁ siddhanam kaschinmā veti tattvatam. He had some siddhi, some yogic perfection, but he didn't have Krishna Bhakti. Out of thousands of siddhas, hardly one may understand Krishna. So the happiness he experienced, that devotees, when they see this, they think, poor guy, he missed it. He didn't get the real thing. To be a neophyte devotee, struggling with the mind and senses, trying to chant the holy names of Krishna, is a much preferable situation than to be a Brahma-realized yogi with no attraction toward Krishna consciousness. This Ramana Maharshi, he must have also had information of Vishnu Bhakti. Probably not Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement, but definitely he must have had information of Vishnu Bhakti. Because anyone who's living in this area of the world which is now called Tamil Nadu, especially a Hindu, they must know something, at least. I don't know, in the modern age, you'll meet Hindus from Tamil Nadu who have never heard the name of Ramanuja. What a terrible situation. What is the use of this independence? They got independence from the British for what? So they could promote atheism? They must not teach anything about religion. I mean, even if you take it from the cultural or social point of view, Ramanuja was one of the greatest persons of Tamil Nadu. Even if you consider him just as a philosopher, he was way ahead of Dr. Radha Krishnan. There's such atheists and demons. Even if they want to promote from the historical, cultural or social point of view, even from that point of view, they should teach people who is Ramanujacharya, who is Vedanta Deshika, these great persons. But their policy is to kill any inclination toward that. But anyway, Ramana Maharshi must have had information of that. He must have also visited at some point various Vishnu temples. But his inclination to serve Vishnu, which is the natural propensity of the liberated soul, did not arise in him. So he was unfortunate. Inasmuch as he understood that this material world is miserable, and he went for spiritual life, not material life. I read briefly his biography once, I can't remember it exactly. But he made the classic mistake of the impersonalists, that when he got some realization, he misunderstood what it was and considered that now I'm getting this bliss and I have a cosmic vision, I'm detached from this material world, that now I myself am supreme. So he became an offender. Mayavadi Krishna aparadhi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Mayavadis are offenders to Krishna. So from one perspective you can say he's a great personality. From another, he's an offender to Krishna. Because he avoids, everyone who's not a devotee of Krishna is an offender of Krishna. Everyone who's not endeavoring to serve Krishna is avoiding Krishna. So everyone's an offender, but particularly the Mayavadis are offenders because they propagate the misunderstanding that Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, and the Jiva are one and the same. Recently I was in Tiruvannamalai, where the principal ashram of Ramana Maharshi is situated. We happened to drive past that on our way. We were driving from Tiruvannamalai, where we had a preaching program. I was going on to Sri Ranga. So we passed that ashram. So it's quite a few Westerners there. And opposite the ashram was the tea stove. They thought it was Tiruvannamalai. And they were sitting out, it was about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know if they've done their meditation. I don't know if they take tea before meditation or after meditation. But anyway, they didn't look very Brahman realized. They looked pretty miserable. They have their imagined spiritual advancement. Where's the spiritual advancement? See, the tea stall is just opposite the ashram. I mean, you can see that it was obvious that it was a well-located tea stall because most of their business came from the ashramites. Maybe they don't allow tea inside. I don't know. But they had a good business from the visitors or the residents. So they were there, Ramana, although they're supposed to be taking pleasure in Brahma soup, practically speaking, they were still in the tea soup. They were still in Yehi Samsparshaja Bhoga. They were still interested in the interaction between the senses and the sense objects. So their spiritual advancement was, we can say, imaginary. You can imagine yourself to be self-realized. But that's not the real thing. And even if you do become as advanced as Ramana Maharshi, it's still not the real thing unless there's Krishna Bhakti. So ultimately, although we may, from one perspective, respect him and praise him, but from the ultimate perspective, everything he did was a waste of time because he didn't find Krishna. Dharmasvanushtita pumsang vishvaksena kathasuyaha nodpadi yadi ratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Whatever we do, unless we develop attraction to Krishna, it's simply a waste of time. Now, rati means attraction. But the whole idea of the Mayavadis is to get free from attraction. They've understood that the interaction of the senses with the sense objects is a cause of distress. So they don't do that. They subdue their attraction, or they stop being attracted to anything material. But unless we develop attraction for the spiritual, then ultimately we fall down again to the gross platform. Actually, they haven't really transcended this material world. It's like they're hovering a little bit above it, but they're not anchored. They're not fixed in the genuine spiritual existence of serving Krishna. Therefore, their position is tenuous. It means shaky. They're not likely to remain in that situation, because the jiva by nature has so many desires. The Mayavadis, they want to be free from desires. But it's not possible to be wholly free from desires, because the nature of the jiva is to serve Krishna. So unless they develop desires to serve Krishna, even though they're experiencing some Brahma Sukh, that experience will not fully satisfy them. And in course of time, they will again become attracted to material activities. Srila Prabhupada pointed out that even many Mayavadis who have renounced the world, and then they open hospitals and schools. Well, why open hospitals and schools if you've renounced the world? Because they don't find satisfaction in their so-called Brahma Sukh, and they want to come and perform some activities which are mundane. Hospitals and schools, hospitals are for the body and schools are for the mundane intellect. Most schools nowadays, unless there's an actual Gurukul. So that shows that they're not really fixed on the spiritual platform. Otherwise, why should they be interested in opening hospitals? There are plenty of people to open hospitals. It's not the business of a spiritually minded person to open hospitals. So, such persons are unfortunate. Moghasha mogha karmano mogha jnana vichetasaha rakshasam asuram chaiva prakritim mohanim shutaha. Persons who are not attracted to Krishna consciousness, all their hopes are ultimately frustrated. All their activities are ultimately frustrated. All their knowledge is ultimately frustrated. Their very consciousness is clouded. They become attracted to demoniac and atheistic views. And they fall down into the material situation again. That is inevitable. If one is not in Krishna consciousness, and even if one has some primary spiritual realization, if one maintains the attitude of envy toward Krishna, which is the root cause of material life, then even if one is partially spiritual realized, then that's not genuine spiritual realization at all. The root disease is still there, which is envy of Krishna. So even though someone may be detached from material attraction, but still envious of Krishna. Therefore, Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmane Vaishnave Swalpam Punyavatam Rajan Vishvaso Nirjanati. One who has not or one who has very little punya, actual piety, their faith in Mahaprasad, in Govinda, in the holy name, in the Vaishnavas, it does not awake. They do not have faith in Krishna because they think, I am God. What do I need any other God for? I have no material suffering. I am detached from this material world. And there's no need for me to pray to God. They see the Vaishnavas as sentimentalists. They're not on such a height. They'll encourage, yes, very good. You do your bhakti. That's good for you. But I'm already on a higher platform. I don't need to do bhakti. Just like this rascal, you don't know him so well because he only speaks in Hindi. But this so-called Asaramba, he's in North India. So he was giving a lecture in which, there's no such incident recorded, but he made it up, in which Tukaram, who's famous in Maharashtra, according to this rascal, once he went to the temple of Vittal, Krishna, and the deity told him, there's no need for you to come to the temple anymore. He said, why? This Tukaram, great devotee of Krishna, he asked, why? He said, because now you're fully self-realized, so you and me are both the same. So no need to come anymore. So such persons, they consider that bhakti is a process by which you can come to the platform of understanding that you are God. But I don't need to do bhakti because I've already understood that I am God. So such persons are demons. They think I am God. Like Pondraka in Krishna Lila, he thought I am God. Krishna is not the real God, I am the real God. So persons who have very little genuine piety or bhakti unmukhi sukriti or activities that incline them towards bhakti, they may have some kind of spiritual realization, but it's off course without having faith in Krishna. So persons, it would be a good idea to train the children, start at a young age, to just sit, not wander around. When do they want to learn? It's also, we have to train the adults also, to train their children and to turn off their cell phone. If anyone still has a cell phone home, then kindly turn it off, because we're discussing important things. So persons who are unfortunate, they have no faith in Krishna. And even though they have some apparent spiritual realization, that spiritual realization which they have, it becomes an obstacle. It becomes a greater obstacle in their possibility of developing bhakti. If they're just suffering materialists, if they have a little piety and they come in contact with Vaishnavas, then they may take some interest. They say, all these people are happy, or maybe I could become happy by them. How are you so happy? Then we'll tell them, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But even if you're not Brahman realized, but if you're attached to something like some impersonalist organization, or you're attached to some impersonalist guru, then you think, no, I don't need this bhakti. They're actually moving, although in one sense they're moving up, if they're actually trying to become detached from the material senses. Although actually, like I said, we don't find people who are supposed to be following Ramana Maharshi. If the tea stall has such a good business, then that is a sign of the failure of any of them to become materially detached, because they're not even trying for it, actually. Their meditation is a sham. So, that they have some interest in spiritual life, okay, maybe, alright, that's good. But if you get on the wrong track in the beginning, if you don't get on the Vaishnav path, then we're more likely to go further away. That's why in Chaitanya Bhagavat it's described that the drunkards are more fortunate than the Mayavadis. There's described there how in his Navadip Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came across some drunkards as he was dancing, and the drunkards started imitating. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna! But they weren't envious. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave them some mercy. That, alright, you're trying to say Hare Krishna. You don't know why, you can't pronounce it properly because you're drunk. To be drunk is very low class, very sinful. Although in the modern age they're promoting it as something high class to drink whiskey because it's very expensive. But it's very sinful. But even very sinful people, if they somehow or other, they had some attraction to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that's good for them. But the impersonalists, they were opposed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They criticized him. So, what is that? Madhya Udha Habe Kono Dine. I can't remember exactly. That the drunkards, even they may someday be delivered. But those who are envious of Krishna and the devotees, they can never be delivered. Of course, we find in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he gave special mercy to the Prakashananda Saraswati, who was envious of him, openly critical of him. In the case of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was another impersonalist, but he wasn't envious of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He served Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he in a way which was ultimately foolish, he thought, I will benefit this sannyasi, because he's a young sannyasi and he's very good looking. It's going to, even in those days, he thought it's going to be difficult for him to maintain his sannyas. So let me teach him about the principles of Brahman realization from Vedanta Sutra. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu listened to him for 7 days. Politely listened to him. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked, you're just listening, you don't make any comment, you don't ask any question. I don't know whether you're understanding it or not. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I can understand the Vedanta Sutra, but I can't understand your explanations because they don't make any sense. Sarvabhauma was surprised. Well, what do you mean they don't make any sense? Then he explained. Actually, when you're quoting Vedanta Sutra, that's alright. But then when you explain it, you simply cover the real meaning. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the real meaning. And Sarvabhauma became a great Vaishnava. But with Prakashananda Saraswati, he was openly critical of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He never served him, he only criticized him. Still, he had some piety. Inasmuch as he was following certain Vedic principles, the Mayavadi sannyasis are strict followers of certain principles, and he was residing at a holy place. It's not mentioned there, but he must have been bathing in the Ganga daily. And he wasn't engaged in gross sense gratification. So he had some piety, but at the same time he was offensive. But when he came in contact with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered him. So that piety, it's mixed up. You can say with someone like Ramana Maharshi, some piety, some goodness is there. But it's mixed up with misunderstanding and some envy. Krishna is there. So devotees, they are more fortunate. Another thing, Srila Prabhupada was asked that is it better to be a Christian who at least believes in one God, or to be a worshipper of Kali? Specifically asked about worshippers of Kali, who they believe, they'll worship, their concept is there are many gods, and specifically they worship Kali. And Kali worshippers, they're in almost all cases meat eaters. So it's a long way from Krishna Bhakti. It's not a high level of Vedic culture by any means. But Srila Prabhupada said it's better to be a worshipper of multi-demigods and even of Kali than to be a Christian, because at least they're within the Vedic culture. The Vedic culture makes one pious. Even if one is simultaneously cultivating some kind of impiety, the piety that one accrues by being within the Vedic culture is still better than the piety one gets by being a Christian. So that's a telling statement. Still, our task is not to make people Christians or Mayavadis, but to, on behalf of Srila Prabhupada or in his service, tell people that here's something much better. Here's the bliss of the Harinam Sankirtan movement. Here's the direct process to experience that Ananda, Satyananda, true bliss of even more than the Vishnu Bhakti, which is propagated in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, the Prem Bhakti that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering through the process of Nam Sankirtan. So, while offering respect to all genuine sadhus, at the same time, we understand that the position of the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is much better. We are fortunate to be in such a position that we are able to take to Krishna consciousness and dance and chant. So those who have understood the good fortune to be in Krishna consciousness should try to spread that to others. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching. Jare dekho tare kaha Krishna upadesh amar agya guru hoya tara udesh. So one can do that in any station of life. Children going to school can ask their friends to chant Hare Krishna. The housewives can speak to the other housewives about chanting Hare Krishna. The IT professionals can tell their fellow IT professionals, ask them to chant Hare Krishna. Of course, there are quite a few young unmarried men here, present here in this meeting this evening, who are IT professionals and unmarried, so I can suggest to you or recommend to you that a lot better than being an IT professional, married or unmarried, is to dedicate your life fully in preaching Krishna consciousness. Because although one can be very good devotee in the Grihastha ashram, but it is a source of entanglement also. In most cases, most of one's energy goes towards maintaining one's family. So if you can be a full-time brahmachari and preach Krishna consciousness, that's the best thing you can do. There's nothing better. Of course it may not be suitable for everyone, but those of you who can do it, at least you should consider. We're talking about Ananda, Satya Ananda, true bliss. Definitely there's whatever slight reflection of pleasure that one might get in being an IT professional amidst all the stress and the hard work and the competition. I mean, there's no comparison between the happiness of being a devotee in Krishna consciousness, fully engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness, and the grind of being a successful IT professional. I was just in Sri Lanka. The conditions are such that we had lots of bumpy driving for long hours, very uncomfortable. But that, I was thinking as we were bumping along, that this situation is much preferable to having comfortable home with nice wife and family and plenty of money. It's a much to bump up and down, in and out, to go to one place to another. And then of course there's the military are stopping you every kilometer so in Tamil areas. Because there's a civil war going on in the country. So that despite the difficulties, it's not definitely difficult, but to have the opportunity to go from place to place and bring the teachings that Srila Prabhupada has given to us. That's a great mercy, to be able to be engaged like that. No material situation can compare to it. So, I'm especially speaking to the young, unmarried men here, that why don't you dedicate your lives for spreading Krishna consciousness. Take training and go and preach. There's plenty of people who are willing to take it up. They just need some guidance. Times have changed actually. I mean, it used to be. I first came to India, actually I came in 76, but to stay, I came in 1977. And then after that I was in Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia, Burma, and these places for a few years. Actually for about 11 years. And then I was again based in India. But more or less I've been in this area since then. But from 77 to 79 I was in India. I didn't go outside India. And it was very difficult actually, because our movement wasn't so well established, and mostly we got the response, I'm a Hindu and I know everything. I'm a born Hindu. You're a converted Hindu, or you cannot convert to Hinduism. So it's very difficult. But nowadays, people are more inclined to accept this, and many people are looking for guidance. Here in Tamil Nadu, there are many people who are asking us, come, do programs, show us, train us, guide us, everywhere, all over in different parts of the world. People are experiencing the distress of modern life and wanting to take to some spiritual path, and understanding that actually this is the genuine path. People can understand, even in this impious age, many people have enough spiritual credit to understand that this is a genuine path. That what we're giving, and you can see from the principles. Who asks for no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication? I don't think any groups ask for that. And then what we're doing is based on Shastra. It's a traditional process. We're not promoting some bogus person. As in Sri Lanka also, some of you were asked, Amma, that so-called Amma had been there recently. We were asking about her. I said, yeah, she's promoting something. She's promoting herself. You should worship her. All these people, so many bogus people. Her, and then people are asking about Sai Baba. But they're all promoting themselves. Prabhupada is a genuine guru because he's promoting Krishna. Krishna, in Bhagavad-gita we find worship Krishna. We don't find worship Amma, worship Sai Baba, all these bogus people. So many people have enough spiritual credit to understand that this is genuine. And now the situation is such that many people, if we offer the genuine thing, they'll take it. So we need preachers. So for yourself, do good to yourself and others. If you're a Grihasta, preach Krishna consciousness. If you're not yet a Grihasta, then you don't have to. Women, of course, they should be married. But young men, you can come, get trained, and perfect your life. Make your life perfect. Millions and trillions of times more perfect than that of any impersonalists or anyone else. Hare Krishna. Is there any question? It's getting a little late. Some of you have come from a long way. I saw some devotees from Avadi. Maybe they're still here? Yeah, still here. A long way to go. Yeah. Then, any question? Yeah, please ask. Yeah, ask in the mic as it's there, it's convenient. Please ask in using the microphone. Oh, another thing I should say, when I'm just looking at your balding, greying hair, is that when you get on the other side of Grihastha life, when your children are grown and settled, it's time to come out and preach.
Yes. This master said that a lot of papers are in the society, or the consciousness,
Yeah.
philosophy, and way of life. So we have many courses, actually, even a lot of courses are available. For anything, you have a course. So we should also offer.
We should also have courses, yeah.
Something like
Well, we do have in various centers courses. Maybe it's not much developed here, but we need people to come out and teach them. So, opportunities are there. But we need dedicated workers. Of course, courses can be conducted by grihastha devotees also. Then you have to get trained.
You organize diagrams, distribute I was thinking Bangalore.
Well, if you don't, I'm just going to cut you out a little bit there, because Prabhupada at least once said that so many people say you should do this, you should do that. So many people come to me, Prabhupada said, and say you should do this, you should do that. Prabhupada would say, why don't they come and join us? Then we can do it. We can only work within our capacity. So you can come, get trained, and do it. You can't always expect others to do it. If you see there's a need, fill it up. So you can get trained. I don't know if there are such training programs in Chennai, but certainly in other cities there are programs for training devotees and conducting such courses. Yeah.
Going back earlier in the lecture, I was under the impression that Prabhupada maintained the position that if one is a Christian or one is a Muslim, you should follow the teachings.
Yeah. Prabhupada said that if you're a Christian, you can follow that. If you're a Muslim, follow that. Yeah.
So does that help them or?
Does it help them? Well, Srila Prabhupada would say if you're a Christian, then you can follow that. Of course, if someone was a Christian and took to the principles of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, he would never discourage them. I presume Srila Prabhupada said that because he knew that people, once they're already committed, it's very rare for them to change. That Krishna says about demigod worship, what is that? Tasya achalam shraddham tameva vididhamyaham. What's the beginning of that verse? Yeah, I know the translation. I just can't remember the beginning of the verse. Anyway, the point is that yepi anya devata shraddha yajanti shraddhayanvita tepi that's another verse. Tepi mameva konteya yajanti abhidita. That's another verse. Anyway, Krishna says that those who worship various demigods, I make their faith strong. So if one is committed in a certain line, it may be very difficult for them to change. So Prabhupada, but he would say that also, if you're a Christian, then follow Christianity. But he would say that Christians, they're not properly followed, they should properly follow. He would say that Christians, they should not eat meat. He would always insist on that. He wouldn't discuss with Christians beyond, unless they accepted this point. He wouldn't go beyond that. First you accept, thou shalt not kill. So it's preaching according to their level. Anything else?
I have heard from some of your disciples that you are very strict. You insist on strictly following the sadhana schedules and other things. So I would like to hear from you some guidance on keeping up with the sadhana schedules and how to maintain it strictly.
How can we maintain sadhana schedules strictly? Generally, it's very difficult in modern city life for those who are not fully committed as ashram inmates. So one may have to make some adjustment. Early to bed, early to rise is a good policy which most of us won't be following tonight, and at least not the early to bed part. Early to rise is always good, but to have early to rise, you have to have early to bed. If the whole family is committed to Krishna consciousness, that's very good, otherwise it gets more difficult. No TV is a very good policy. Even if we have videos and this and that, that's all right. I mean, videos of Krishna consciousness. But even then, in general, books are a better medium for transmitting Krishna consciousness. Modern life, going to work. Modern life is just meant for killing people's spiritual proclivities, actually. There's no, sadhana means we require time, but there's no time. People are just work. And so many of our initiated devotees, they hardly read anything from Prabhupada's book. They don't have time, and they chant their rounds on a clicker in a bus or something like this. So, the first thing to do is to at least make the attempt to adjust one's life so that one has time for sadhana. What's the use if you're earning 20,000 rupees a month but you don't have time to chant Hare Krishna properly? What's the point? So one should try to adjust one's life. Even then, just like if you're at home, you're married, the housewife has children, and in modern life you have to send the children up to school early, you have to cook for them early. Then you can chant later. Housewife, it's good to be a housewife. Don't work also. Then where's the time for sadhana? Then there's no time for sadhana. The first thing is to make time, and then one has to have the determination to do so. One may not do everything early in the morning, but at some other time. If you're a housewife and you're sending children off to school, then maybe when they've gone off to school, then you can chant and read and all these things. For this kind of thing, one requires some personal guidance, how to apply the general principles of Krishna consciousness, how they are to be practically applied in one's personal life. Then one needs some guidance. General principles. Practically applying that, take some guidance. Or use common sense, that's all. Talking about strict sadhana, well, I often don't have strict sadhana because due to traveling, this morning I chanted the Gurvashtaka while taking a shower, because after that I had to go to the airport. After traveling all day, we took rest. After 10 o'clock, then I got up just before 4 o'clock, and there was just time to take a shower, pack up and go to the airport. So sometimes you have to do like that. As a daily practice, it's not very good, not advisable. Sometimes we have to do that. Rising early and chanting Gurvashtaka is the best way to start the day. Incomparable. Of course, if you rise very early, then you can chant some rounds before. And then it's such a beautiful song. Everything about Krishna consciousness is so attractive. Definitely we should want to maximize our time for that. Anything else? Alright then, so we'll chant Hare Krishna for maybe 5 minutes more. And then we'll move on. I see there's a bookstore, my books set up there.